Chapter 9. Friendly Dates. Jade realized she only had 4 hours until her dinner with Rob, and she proceeded inside to fuss and fantasize about what to wear, what to say, and how to say it. She hoped they could just talk openly like the first time. She had so much she wanted him to hear. Rob drove away from Jade's estate and struggled to stay in the present moment. He'd had a strange experience during his appointment, and that had scared him a little. Then he had seen Jade, and everything had faded. He was hoping they could talk openly at dinner. As much as she turned him on, he wanted to hold her in the highest regard. He didn't know quite why. Had any other girl presented herself to him like that, they would have been playing under the sheets together in no time flat. This was different, he thought, but he didn't understand just why yet. Jenny went into her studio to tidy up after her appointment with Rob. She thought about their session and what he had shared with her after his treatment. He was going to need a lot of help, and maybe more than she could give him. She considered calling in a favor from a good friend of hers, but her thoughts scattered as her cell rang and she saw Logan's name pop up. Logan had been thinking about Jenny ever since their chance lunch meeting. He couldn't get his mind off her, and he was looking forward to their outing tomorrow. "Hey, Jenny, it's me, Logan," he said when she answered. "I know, your name came up on my phone. You're in my contact list now, and you're not getting out," she joked with him. He relaxed a little. "Any chance we can get away earlier tomorrow?" "Well, you're in luck. What did you have in mind?" Jenny said, feeling happy at the sound of his voice. "I thought you might want to go up to the wolf sanctuary with me. It's not far from you, and we could make it a day trip. I think you'd really like it," Logan said, hoping she would agree. He really wanted to see her again. "You know, I could really use the company and the solitude you described. It sounds like just what I need. I would love to go." "Great. I can pick you up at your place at 9 a.m. and we could get breakfast before heading out," he said. "Perfect. I'll see you then. I'll text you my address," she said, hoping she didn't sound too excited, but all she could think of was that heat she had felt when they had first met. "Bye, Jenny. See you tomorrow," Logan said, feeling lighter than he had all week. Inside the main house, Jade was feeling worked up, more so than usual. She thought about calling Alejandro to come run with her, but realized she had given him the day off. "I need some time to think anyway," she thought, realizing she didn't know what to make of what happened earlier. Had some sort of charge really passed between her and Rob? She wasn't sure. She knew, however, that she had sworn off heavy relationships, especially after what had happened with Carlo in Rome during her European tour several years ago. She had played 2 sold-out shows at the Init Club, and he had been pressed right up against the stage at both. Every time she looked down at him, he flicked his tongue at her, and she could see the sculptured muscles under his dress shirt. He had paid someone on the security staff handsomely to be let backstage after the second show, and when Jade had come off stage, he was there standing in the wings with a dozen camellias, Jade's favorite flower. He spoke to her softly in Italian. "Venite con mio amante, come with me, lover," he had said, as she politely asked him to leave. She was about to have him thrown out when he drew in close to her, placed his hands on her hips, and gave her a deep, passionate kiss. The feeling of his hands on her body had sent electric shivers up and down her spine, and she had succumbed to the kiss. She pushed him towards her dressing room, and they had made love on top of her dressing table. He'd had the valet pull his Maserati to the back door and offered to take Jade to his villa. She had spent 2 weeks with him there, and it was the most intense and satisfying experience she'd ever had. Just as their time together was coming to an end, Jade realized she was in love with this man with the gentle soul, and she had worked up the courage to confess her feelings to him. "My love, this can never be like that," he had said in broken English. "My wife, she will be home soon. I thought you knew this was just for fun. I thought that's what you liked, to have fun like this." He kept talking, softly pressing himself against her. Jade's vision had blurred as hot tears streamed down her face. "I hate you, Carlo. I don't ever want to see you again." She'd screamed at him, lashing out and trying to hit him hard with the palm of her hand. He caught her wrist and slid his hand gently down her arm, trying to subdue her. "Don't be so upset, my love. We can still see each other, whenever you want. But we can never be more than that. Do you see what I mean? She had seen clearly now and realized what a fool she had been to let love in. She had broken her own rule, never fall for a fan or another musician. She had been so foolish and had never felt more betrayed by herself than in that moment. Since then, she only used men the way they had used her, and her heart had hardened to love's calling. Jade was jolted out of her memory by her cell ringing. It was her mother. In her excitement at seeing Rob, she had forgotten that she was supposed to meet her mother for drinks. "Hello, Jade. It's me, Mom." Jade always laughed when she heard her mother announce herself. "I know, Mom. How are you today?" she asked politely. Their relationship had been tense ever since Jade had left home at 16 to join her first band, the Pussycats. "I'm doing well, Jade. I'm calling to let you know I need to reschedule our date today. I've had some last-minute things come up with my charity work, and I'll need to attend to those right away." Jade, who wasn't at all disappointed in this change of events, tried to sound concerned. "Is there anything I can help with, Mom?" she said with sincerity. "No, dear, it's my women's group. They can't decide amongst themselves about some petty details for our next fundraiser. I'll need to go over to Melanie's house and smooth everyone's feathers, but I need to do it now or else they'll be held to pay later." "Oh, well, then another time then," Jade said, realizing this freed her up to hang out with Rob now. She felt a flutter of excitement in her stomach. "Yes, dear, I'll have Randall call to reschedule with your girl. Are you really doing okay?" her mom asked with concern in her voice. "Yes, Mom, I'm fine, better than I've been in a long time," Jade said, and this time she really meant it. Jade put her phone down and sat on the velvet green chaise in her room, her fiery red hair hanging down over her shoulders. She allowed her mind to drift again. She fell into a light sleep and dreamt of a Scottish castle where she resided as a lonely princess whose father had gone off to war with the Saxons. As she made her way around the empty castle, a thick fog shrouded its outer walls. She felt like she was waiting for someone, but she didn't know who. Then there was a loud banging at the castle gate. The guards that her father had left to watch over things opened the massive wooden gate to reveal a large dappled horse with a rider clad in full armor. "I have come for the princess. She has to come away with me," the knight said with authority. In the dream, Jade had tiptoed around to get a good look at the visitor. At the sound of his voice, her heart leapt with joy and longing. A deep remembrance filled her, and she wanted so badly to run to this stranger at the gate. "Who are you?" the guards demanded. "No one enters here without authorization from the king. Show yourself, stranger." The guards were emphatic now, pushing against the great dappled steed. The stranger slowly lifted the faceplate on his armor and looked in the direction that she was hiding. She saw the face so clearly that she dropped to her knees. He had come to save her. Her lover was here. He was really here, she thought, as her heart raced and she scrambled to get up and run to him. The alarm on her cell rang, and Jade was jolted from her dream. Her heart was racing as she clearly recalled the face of her night lover. She had never had a dream quite like this before, she thought to herself, regaining her composure and sitting up on the chaise. It was just so strange. Why would she be dreaming of her and Rob like this? She realized she was crying, and she wiped the salty tears from her eyes and shook the dream from her mind. Time to get ready or I'll be late. As Jenny packed a small bag, she realized that she had agreed to go on a trip with a complete stranger. What did she really know about Logan, she thought to herself, knowing that he didn't like his day job and loved to hang out with wolves. "What have you gotten yourself into, Jenny?" she said out loud, although in her heart she really wanted to see Logan again and was hoping they could have a fun time together. She put any worries out of her mind and continued to get ready for their outing. She decided to put together a small bag of travel crystals for the journey. She added leopard skin jasper, malachite, and a rose quartz to the bag and decided if the outing wasn't doing great, she could focus on the wolves. She had always wanted to work with animals, and this might be a new opportunity presenting itself to her. She decided to stay open to any possibility, just in case she was secretly being led by her helping spirits. After leaving Jade's estate, Rob had driven along the coast highway for a while. His head was swimming with questions, but he felt strangely calm and at ease. He didn't feel like having a drink, and that was something new. He needed to get clear-minded before he had to pick up Jade. He wanted to speak to her about things only his subconscious mind could fathom at the moment. He felt that he had so much to say to her. So many lost words had never been spoken. He really didn't know why he felt this way. He just did. He decided he needed to rest a bit and made a U-turn as he passed what looked like a small private retreat along the ocean side of the highway. He turned the big Mercedes into the entrance of Soul Step Retreat and hoped it wouldn't be too crowded. As it turned out, most of Soul Step's guests hadn't checked in for the weekend yet, and it appeared he might have the place to himself. As fate would have it, he had arrived at Jade's older brother Sky Monroe's retreat. I might as well get a room just in case, he thought, and then reminded himself that he wasn't trying to bed Jade as much as spend quality time with her. He would have to quell any lusty desires. That is, unless she made the first move. Then he might not be able to control himself, he thought, as he stepped out of the car and made his way inside. "Do you have any rooms for the night?" he asked another pert and perky young woman at the front desk whose nameplate told him her name was Cherry. Cherry's jaw dropped slightly when she saw who it was in front of her, but she reminded herself that guests, especially noteworthy ones, came to Soul Step to get away from the public eye. And as Sky kept reminding the staff, it was their utmost responsibility to keep the identity of their guests confidential. "Yes, of course, Mr. Strom. Will you be staying long?" So she knew who he was, he thought to himself. "Look, I don't want any publicity around this," he said emphatically. "I'm just here for the night, possibly 2, but that's it." "Oh, no, Mr. Strom. We keep your identity strictly confidential. It's our utmost priority not to speak with anyone about who is staying here," she said, while at the same time savoring the view in front of her. It wasn't every day that one of the hottest, rock musicians of the year walked up to her and started a conversation. Rob, who was also savoring the view in front of him, reminded himself that he wasn't here to cavort. He needed to relax and shower before he saw Jade again. He handed Cherry his credit card and waited patiently for his room key. He would need to let Conrad know where he was and check in with Murray, but that would wait for him to get settled in. "Do you have bags, Rob? Mr. Strom, can we help with your luggage?" Cherry's voice faltered slightly. She realized it would take everything in her not to tell her friends all about the retreat's hot new guest, but signing a contract when she hired on that had clearly spelled out legal action, so should she do just that, kept her from thinking about it any further. "I've only got one right here," he said, holding up his bag. "I just need my car moved around, and I'll need it again at 7:30, he said, handing her the keys. "I'll have someone take care of that for you. Enjoy your stay, Mr. Strom," Cherry said, handing him his room key as she stepped from around the desk. Rob noticed everything about her, especially the tight-fitting short shorts and floral halter top as his eyes caught hers. "Yours is the private cabana on the far side, away from the pool area. You'll have almost complete privacy there. I hope you like it." Cherry's sentences were starting to run out now. "You can call me any time if there's a problem," she said breathlessly. "Now that is good to know," he said, winking at her, as he turned and made his way through the small lobby area towards the pool. Cherry realized there were small beads of sweat dripping down between her breasts as she watched him walk away. As Rob neared the pool area, he caught sight of a small board listing the activities at the retreat. Readings and energy healing with Chandra Rose was at the top of the list. Rob had never had a psychic reading and was mildly intrigued as he sidestepped pool shoes and cabana towels. He tried to keep low-key behind his aviators and moved quickly and unobtrusively towards his cabana. He saw it behind some palm fronds and several yards away from anything else. He wondered if he could enter privately from the parking area and decided to scope it out. If, and it was a big if, but if Jade were willing, he would bring her back here to his room, and that would definitely need to be kept on the down low. He didn't want anyone seeing them entering a room together. He knew that if he let Jade into his heart, he wouldn't be able to let her out again, and he didn't want anything spoiling that. As he unlocked the door, the suite opened up before him. He caught himself mid-thought. What was he thinking? Hadn't he already told himself that Jade was just a good friend and nothing more? And here he was thinking about bringing her into his bed. He knew from experience that this kind of romance never lasted. He dropped his bag down, opened up the veranda doors that swung out onto the ocean side of the cabana, and lay down on the soft bed. In his mind, he heard her voice. "Roberto, I think we should go to Jamaica for our honeymoon." He lay next to Carlita on the small bed in her room. He was 17 and had met her while playing in her older brother's garage band in Sussex. She had come out into the garage to watch every rehearsal, and his young 17 self couldn't resist being eyed by the 16-year-old Latina in a short skirt and vintage Journey band t-shirt. They spent every night after band practice talking in her parents' backyard, and he soon realized he had an affection for this girl that went beyond physical attraction. One night when her parents were out and her older brother was fiddling with his guitar in the garage, they had snuck up to her room and made love for the first time standing up in her bedroom closet, Carlita holding her hand against her mouth to stifle the loud screams of pleasure she felt when Rob was inside her. One night, several weeks later, Rob had asked her to marry him. It was the first time since losing his parents that he had felt close to someone, like he could spend his entire lifetime here with her in this moment. She had giddily accepted, and they had planned how they would run away and get married in Mexico, where her grandparents lived and where underage marriages weren't frowned upon. But Rob hadn't planned on the fickle nature of sweet 16-year-old girls. He hadn't planned on Antonio either. Antonio, the garage band's new drummer, took to Carlita like a bee to honey, and soon the two were spending way too much time together. Yet young Rob couldn't or didn't want to believe what was happening right before his eyes. He wasn't the fighting type, and he didn't think kicking Antonio's ass would help much anyway. And just as his parents had slipped away from him, Carlita slipped right away into Antonio's arms, and at that moment, Rob was determined to never give his heart away like that again. "No, Jade and I are only friends and nothing more," he said to himself. "Nothing more." Chapter 10. Nothing more. Yeah. Jade, on the one hand, could only find herself thinking about Rob one minute and then thinking about Jenny the next. Why, she didn't know. The usually overly confident and powerful feeling she always had when working her magic on stage with the band seemed to elude her at this moment. She was dissolved, broken down with a feeling in her gut that she couldn't quite explain. "It doesn't matter," she thought. "I just want to talk to someone who understands me, and Rob happens to be here." She decided that rather than slinky, she was going for the glamorous look. Deep purple shadow on her eyes with sparkly liner and lashes, smoky lips, and her dark red hair down and curled softly around her shoulders, she looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Somehow she felt like she had lived this moment so many times over that she suddenly felt completely exhausted and vulnerable. She dabbed tears from the corners of her eyes as she chastised herself out loud. "Damn it, Jade Monroe, get yourself together. Do you hear me? What in the heck are you nervous about? We already made a deal. Remember our deal? Well, you better remember it. Here, let me remind you. We are not falling in love with anyone. Period. End of story." She brushed away the last remaining tears and decided that she was premenstrual and nothing more. She usually got very emotional around that time anyway, and had to sequester herself until it ran its course. Jenny kept telling her the moon influenced her emotions, but she wasn't sure whether to believe that or not. She went to her closet and pulled a powder blue short set off the hanger. Shorts, not too short, and a crisscross halter top that showed off her tight midriff and the rose tattoo around her belly button. She decided to wear a long pink silk sweater on top in case it got chilly. There now, she looked fabulous, she thought, glancing in the mirror. Kind of like a 40s pinup girl. It's just right. Plus, you never know when a camera might be pointing in her direction, and she definitely had to play the part of the juicy songstress. Just then her cell rang, and she picked it up to see Alejandro's name. I wonder what he could need right now. He's supposed to have the weekend off, she thought, answering. With, "Is everything okay, hun?" "Jess," he said with the thick accent he often acquired when he spent too much time with his Latin friends, "I was thinking about you. Are you okay, love?" I can barely understand you. Speak clearly. Where are you now? Are you out showing yourself off again? It was their private joke. No, I'm here in town, but Joaquin, he's with me. We are having the best time at bumper cars. You wouldn't understand, he said. Joaquin was Alejandro's on-again, off-again partner of the past 10 years. They were inseparable when they were together and often were taken for brothers rather than lovers. But a long-distance relationship where Alejandro was jet-setting with Jade and Joaquin was pining away in Mexico City often took its toll on the two. And Joaquin was never sure of his exact place in Alejandro's life. I just wanted to call you and hear your voice. I can always tell how you are when I hear you, and right now I hear anxiety. Are you sure you're okay? He said, trying to quell the thick accent that he knew aggravated her. I'm seeing someone tonight. You don't know him, but I think you'd like him, Jade said. We're just having a friendly get-together, nothing more, she said, trying to convince him as well as herself. Do I need to come get you? I could drive you, to take you. Wherever you want meeting this man. Who is it again? He asked with a hint of jealousy. He didn't know why he felt this energy rise in his solar plexus. He just felt by the sound of her voice that this wasn't like the others. The occasional quote-unquote dates and one-nighters were usually Jade's style, and Alejandro knew they were meaningless to her. But for her to sound anxious around meeting a man felt like something more to him, and as much as he loved Joaquin, he loved Jade too. Now he would never let her know this secret of his heart, and he knew that deep down they could never have a future like that together. But he loved her just the same, and would do anything to protect her body and soul. I'm fine, she said, trying to sound calmer so as not to alarm him. The last time she let on that she was anxious about meeting a man at a post-show party, Alejandro couldn't stand it. He had waited outside in the limo for 15 minutes after dropping her off, but something didn't feel quite right to him. Not being able to take it one more moment, he had crashed the party, marched right up to Jade and said man, taking her by the hand and escorting her back to the car. She had protested the entire time, but the next day he felt justified as unbecoming pictures of the date and a young backup singer from another band were plastered all over the Hollywood entertainment social media sites. His name is Rob Strom. He's the singer for Raw Deal, she said calmly. Although, as she said Rob's name, small butterflies flew around inside her stomach. We're just friends going out for dinner, nothing more. You don't need to drive me. He's picking me up soon and everything's fine, she said. He hesitated for a moment, feeling her out. Okay, if you say so. But I think I'm going to stay close, just in case. You don't pay me to be your bodyguard for nothing, he said, feeling that that was the right thing to say at the moment. He didn't know Rob, but he had heard about him in the bodyguard circles that he found himself in. Bodyguards often spent a lot of time waiting around for their clients, and they tended to gather and shoot the shit when things were slow. Rob was known as a charmer, a love-'em-and-leave-'em type with too many notches to fill one belt, and he was heavy into drinking. If it was nothing more, like she said, then the least that could happen was he had to pick Jade up from a hotel in the morning. At least text me where you'll be, he asked politely. Yes, sir. As soon as I know, you'll know. Now go have fun. You're supposed to be off this weekend, she said as she ended the call. She was beginning to think the bodyguard was becoming the one she needed to be guarded against. Rob was humming along with some new song that was caught in his brain. He couldn't get this one off his mind, which meant that he should probably be jotting it down somewhere so he could riff it with the band later on. But he wasn't thinking about the band right now. He was deep into a steamy shower and feeling the hot water pressure on his tight neck muscles. He could use a massage, but there was no time now. His mind went back to the session with Jenny, and he realized how much he had hated his parents at that moment during his regression experience. Jenny had taught him a simple forgiveness technique that he couldn't quite recall at the moment. He would have to ask her to text him with the details later. Right now, though, he was getting ready to see Jade. He opened the glass shower door, and steam escaped and billowed out around him. With the long blonde hair dripping and his muscular body wet with beads of water, he looked at himself in the mirror. He didn't buy much into primping his looks, but he knew what the ladies liked. He decided not to shave, as he liked the day-old beard look, and he knew that it turned the girls on too. He had to stop and remind himself that he wasn't going out with Jade to turn her on. A spray of his favorite cologne and his fingers through his hair with a little gel mousse, and he was ready to go. It was a casual date, so he put on some loose-fitting cargo pants and a black cotton button-down shirt, leaving the buttons open and his chest exposed, of course. He had 30 minutes before he needed to pick up his car at the front, so he decided to check out the entrance to his room and its proximity to the parking area. With his dark glasses on and a straw fedora, he looked incognito for the most part, except by now every staff member at the retreat knew that Rob Strom had checked into the Prana suite. He stepped out of his room and looked around the area. No one was around yet, and he saw that the back part of the parking area was only 30 feet or so from his suite. As he turned around to move towards the pool area, he bumped into a 6-foot Amazon woman, or so it seemed to him as he eyed Chandra Rose up and down and up again. "Well, hello there," Chandra said, being the first to regain her composure after the collision. "I am so sorry," Rob said, holding her elbow where he had run into her. "Are you okay?" "Of course. Hey, do I know you?" Chandra said, as she was sure she had met this man before. She had no idea of his identity. She used her intuition, and it was telling her that she knew this man somehow. "I don't think so. I would have remembered," Rob said, looking deep into her amber eyes. "Yes, me too, most definitely," she said, realizing she was flirting with a guest. "I'm Rob, and you?" he said, holding out his hand. Chandra Rose, Soul Step resident psychic," she said, shaking his hand and noticing the feelings that arose in her when their skin touched. She felt the sexual heat and a deep sadness that made her heart long for the touch of her mother. She pulled her hand back, and just as she was going to suggest that he see her for a reading, Sky Monroe walked up to them. Now, nothing in life happens by coincidence. It was part of a divine plan that had led Rob to Soul Step, that he had run into Chandra, Jenny's best friend, and Sky, Jade's brother, were no mere accident. Cooperative components in the unseen realms had arranged this chain of events for a specific reason and purpose. Now, none of this was apparent to Rob or Sky, but Chandra, being a sensitive soul, knew that all was not as it seemed. She just wasn't sure what role she was going to play in this grand scene. "Chandra, dear, someone's waiting to see you up front," Sky said, noticing that she hadn't taken her eyes from Rob's face since he had seen them from his office suite across the pool. "Oh, my late appointment. I must go," she said. Oh, God. Rob, these voices. Rob, it was nice meeting you. Come see me if you have a chance. I think we need to talk," she said as she turned and glided away towards the front desk. "Well, Rob Strom, it's so good to have you here at Soul Step," Sky said, offering his hand. "I'm Sky, the owner here, and if there's anything I can do to make your stay more comfortable, you just let me know." "Sounds good. I'll keep that in mind," Rob said. "Hey, just between us, is there any chance that if I snuck a girl in here, it would go unnoticed? I'm trying to lay low for once." "Why don't you use my private entrance?" Sky said, handing him a key. "You can park in my reserved area, and when you use this entrance, you bypass the front desk and you come out on the back side of the pool just across from your suite." "Hey, thanks, man. I owe you one," Rob said, taking the key. "Can't hurt to be over-prepared," he thought to himself. "Well, it was good meeting you, man. I've got to pick up my car now. Can't keep a lady waiting," he said as he moved off towards the front desk. He approached the desk and noticed that Cherry had been replaced by Charisse, who looked even more delectable. "You're going to be here all night?" he asked as he stopped to admire the scenery. "Mr. Strom, your car's up front and the valet has your key," Charisse said with a smile. "And," she added, "I am here all night in case you need anything at all." She tried to make it sound professional, but she noticed that what came out was dripping with innuendo. Well, this is it, Rob thought, as he slid behind the wheel of the Mercedes. He realized he had no plan for the evening and decided to stop and pick up a few flowers for Jade on the way. Punching in florist into the onboard Garmin, it turned out there was one on the way. He turned to the Pacific Coast Highway and headed there, realizing he had no idea of her favorites. He got there in less than 10 minutes, and right before the florist was about to place a close sign in the window. He asked her to pick a small assortment for a friend, and the florist made a simple arrangement of a few pink camellias, a succulent, and some natural foliage. As he paid for the arrangement, he couldn't help feeling like he had done this before, picked out an arrangement of just the same flowers for just the same beautiful girl, but from somewhere else in another time. He shook the feeling from his mind and maneuvered the Mercedes towards Jade's estate. As he neared the entrance to her driveway, he felt good, confident, and sure that he was going to be a complete gentleman and nothing more.